I've spent a fair bit of time traveling in large urban settings in low and middle income countries. And this is where I really started to think about children and how their health was affected by growing up in particularly in slum areas in low and middle income countries. So for example, in a place like Kailesha in Cape Town, which is a large slum area attached to Cape Town, or in the slums in Mumbai, you see children growing up in very small, cramped settings with very limited access to fresh food, to fresh fruit, to vegetables, eating a lot of street food, foods that are cooked high in saturated fats and trans fats, for example, and having very limited opportunities for safe physical activity. And I think that's an important part of this. It's one thing to have open space. It's another thing for it to be safe to use it. And so children are growing up in these sort of cramped, unhealthy environments where there's very little in the way of fresh fruit and vegetables available to them, or other elements of a healthy diet, and really having very limited choices in terms of where they go and what they can eat. It really struck me that this is really setting a foundation for poor health. And the reality is that most people are living in large urban settings in low and middle income countries. This is going to increasingly be the reality when you factor in traffic, which you see in places like Mumbai, like Sao Paulo, like any large mega city, where it becomes particularly unsafe and unrealistic for a child to be able to move around safely. It really brings it home that this is something we need to get in front of and start to think about, even though it's a long-term issue that has a lot of factors, a lot of different sectors that need to come to the table and come to solutions. And that's why the Space Initiative is meant to bring together all the different actors and players in this space and start to address children's health in this urban setting at the earliest possible time. One of the reasons we wanted to bring attention to the issue of children and heart health is because increasingly obesity is becoming a problem of children in low and middle income countries. And there's a myth around obesity in children that it's only occurring in high income countries. At the same time, we're seeing in Mexico, for example, it has I believe the second highest childhood obesity rate in the world. And that has to do with the way children are growing up with highly processed foods, with even a lot of trans fats within the street foods that they have available to them, and very limited opportunities for physical activity. In places like China, we're also seeing an increasing occurrence of childhood obesity, even in poorer populations. So on the one hand, there's an issue of increasing prevalence of childhood obesity in low and middle income countries that's directly related to the types of food kids have available to them, to the limited opportunities for exercise. But we're also seeing a co-occurrence of undernutrition and overnutrition. Now, when a mother is malnourished, and when her child spends the first few years of life malnourished, what occurs when calories become available to them actually is that they tend to quickly move into being overweight and even obese. This is something around which there's been some very interesting research done recently, and much more research is needed to show that, in fact, a child who is born deprived of calories, a child who exhibits traditional signs of malnourishment, including stunting, once they are given access to calorie-dense foods, actually quickly move into overweight and obesity. And so this shows that in fact the overweight and obesity are issues among children, not just of high-income countries, but very much of poor children in low and middle-income countries.